Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. We have a very important update to map out what is happening at descending resistance as Bitcoin is finally pulled back. This is something that we talked about, ultimately mapping out multiple scenarios about where we see the market heading from here. And for today's video, we're going to be diving back into some of those same charts, analyzing this correction for Bitcoin, talking about if this is ultimately going to lead to continuation or if this is just the beginning before a much bigger downside drop happens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty, here we are to start off today's video, and inside of our last few updates, we've been talking extensively about this descending resistance, wondering whether or not Bitcoin was going to actually break outside of it or whether we were going to end up pulling back. And for the first time since the low and the retest of 25K, we've actually retested the descending resistance, and we are seeing a little bit of a pullback. Now, this was to be expected, and at least in the short term, considering we didn't really have any sort of pullbacks until we got all the way up here. And now that we are seeing this sell-off, we're still kind of sitting on top of support of the mid-range point. And so we do have the potential where this ends up holding a support and does get continuation, but we're kind of at the last moment for it to do so. What we were talking a lot about was how Bitcoin against the dollar was actually below its resistance. And if we did see a pullback, we kind of didn't really want us to go back below the mid-range point, because if that happened, we would be looking for a much bigger drop and the potential of actually coming all the way back down to 25K. What we wanted to see for a sell-off is us to hold this mid-range point, kind of consolidate here, and then maybe make that next leg up to actually clear descending resistance. Because that's what we have to see if we're going to see Bitcoin get continuation from this point. We have to get outside of descending resistance. But even though we're seeing a pullback, as long as we hold the mid-range point, we still have the potential of us actually getting a buyback. Now, one of the other things that we were looking at was actually the total market cap of altcoins. And I always like to reference the total market cap because oftentimes it shows and actually obeys levels a little bit better than the US dollar pairs. Now, this is the altcoin total market cap, and what we're looking at with the altcoins was how it was actually outside of this descending resistance while Bitcoin was still trending below. And as of now, the altcoin market cap is currently retesting descending resistance as support, and now we're kind of watching to see whether this is an actual breakout and a retest, or if this is just going to end up being deviation. We close back below this level and then come back down for one more final low. We don't know quite yet, but with us sitting right on top of that descending resistance, if this holds right where we're at, then we do have what looks to be a breakout here. Now, in the total market cap, it's kind of being propped up because of the altcoins, but the problem with the total market cap is it is looking like deviation, right? So altcoins have the potential where this is a retest, whereas the total market cap, because of the fact Bitcoin hasn't broken out yet, the total market cap is actually looking more like deviation. And so we're going to be watching all of these charts to kind of determine what actually ends up happening next. But when we're looking at this, the total market cap is starting to look ugly. This looks like a pretty solid rejection on the bigger time frames. And then Bitcoin is once again closing below. So if Bitcoin holds support here, we get a buyback, we continue to trend above this mid-range, then we do have the potential of us flipping the descending resistance. But until then, it's looking like this is going to actually end up closing a little bit bearish. We still have 9 hours left until this candle completely closes, and a lot can happen. If in the short time frames, like I stated, Bitcoin gets a strong reaction, we start getting a buyback, then at that point, this is going to look a little bit more like we're just kind of consolidating right on that descending resistance. We don't have confirmation yet, but we do have to be aware of the fact that Bitcoin is pulling back and we are below resistance. So until Bitcoin gets outside of that, we need to once again consider the fact that this could be going a little bit lower. Now, one of the things that we were paying a lot of attention to was actually the S&P 500. And I talked to you guys about how when we were trending inside of this ascending support, I basically said that if this continues to hold support, then we're going to end up seeing Bitcoin reverse. But if this ends up dropping and makes a lower low, then most likely Bitcoin's going to do the same thing. And we have actually sold below support, and we're actually gapping below that candle as well. And we're currently coming back down to retest this exact same level that we're watching for a buyback, which is basically 4,330. And so with this back down at this level, because we have broke down from our ascending support, I'm not really anticipating that this is going to end up doing some type of a double bottom and then we go up. It is possible that that happens, but what I was watching for if we ended up breaking down from this was actually to make a lower low. And the low that I would see fit for us next is basically $4,200, or not dollars, but 4,200, right? And that's kind of where I would expect the S&P 500 to fall, as long as we don't hold basically the level that we're at, which I'm not really anticipating it. Because there is this gap right here, don't be surprised if, you know, we retest the low end being 43.33. We've jumped back up just a little bit to fill that gap, and then we kind of drop for one more low. I won't be surprised to see something like that, and that could ultimately impact the consolidation that Bitcoin has here. But so far, Bitcoin kind of rallied up into resistance, below descending resistance, and throughout that entire time, the stock market, S&P 500, was just breaking down. So nothing really was getting me super excited about the markets, just because of the fact we wanted to see the S&P 500 hold and start the next leg up, because ultimately when the stock market does well, Bitcoin immediately benefits because of that. So with us breaking down here, it's looking like Bitcoin may not actually get outside of descending resistance, but we can't always just assume that whatever the stock market does, Bitcoin has to follow to 100% certainty. Because when we're looking at Bitcoin, on the bigger time frames, we still have basically the most important level on this entire chart being this 25 to 24K support. And so the fact that we've continued to hold this as support, that's the big thing that we're watching for, at least in the big picture. Even though the shorter time frames are below descending resistance, as long as we're above support of 25K, then I think that the big picture trend is still ultimately bullish. However, if we do see this start to pull back here and we break back down and start making, you know, a move back down to 25K, we could really be looking at the potential of this making that final low. I don't really want to see that, because when we're looking at certain charts, specifically, let's go to the altcoin total market cap. When we're looking at the total market cap of the altcoins, one of the things I'm looking at here is the Elliott wave count. And what I see inside of the Elliott waves is pretty straightforward and simple, right? This is looking like it has the potential of being a retest, but if this ends up being deviation and we fall back down and make one more lower low, I only think that we're getting one more lower low, which for Bitcoin terms, you know, probably wouldn't be an entire breakdown from 25K. It would most likely spell us coming all the way back down and maybe making another retest of 25K. You know, we've spent a number of different times kind of consolidating on this level, you know, and it's kind of more of a range because these were up a little bit higher. But even throughout this entire time, we had a number of different attempts at a breakdown, and none of those were able to actually fulfill. And then the market instantly got bought up. So if we do see one more final sell-off to this 25K level, you know, ultimately 25K is support. So I think that we're obviously better off buying support than we are ever trying to short it. And we want to wait for confirmation. You know, if we get a big daily candle close that does something like this, then obviously that would be looking like a breakdown, and then we would be actually targeting shorts. But if all we're doing is coming back down to 25K, in the same way that every other time we've bounced off that level, you know, it's all ultimately gone up or reversed, I think that that should be our primary focus, because this is still trending support. Now with the altcoins, because I was talking about the potential of one more low, all we're really looking at here, because we do have very clear Elliott wave structure. We saw 5 waves off of the low, and then all we're doing right now is some type of ABC. Either an ABC correction like this, and then this is our first impulse, but we have to hold the breakout of descending resistance if that's the case. Or if we do make one more final low here in this cycle, that would basically make this entire consolidation one big ABC. And the Elliott wave count would be something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this would turn into deviation, and we would get one more final wave 5 impulse to complete the ABC. And I don't think that that really changes a whole lot. If we do see one more final low here, that would be where I would expect Bitcoin to come back down, retest 25K, and then reverse at some point. If Bitcoin breaks down from 25K, I would expect these markets to basically fully retrace all the way back down to basically the December lows. And I'm not really anticipating that. You know, I think that one more low definitely could happen, and kind of one of the reasons I've been talking about that is because of Ethereum. And with Ethereum, we're once again below descending resistance, and we were unable to actually break out. And so what I've been drawing with Ethereum, because it has a little bit easier to identify Elliott wave structure, Ethereum to me looks like a very consistent ABC correction. And what we were watching for was whether this was going to hold as a breakout, and if we could get back up to about 1750, that was where I was basically giving confirmation that the bottom was in for ETH. However, we were unable to hold the breakout, and we're now seeing downside. So with that being said, what that gives us is our alternative wave count, which was always 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one more wave 5, probably back down to anywhere from $1,450 to $1,400. And that's kind of what I'm anticipating with ETH. And so based off what the market is giving us, I do think that we are going to most likely get one more low here, or at the very least ETH is going in for one more final low. To me, this consolidation looks wave 4-ish, like we need one more final impulse to come back down to the downside. What I was watching for with confirmation was us to make this rally turn into a move upwards of 1750, a correction to bring us back down to the mid-range and onto supportive descending resistance, and then from there get continuation. But the fact that we were unable to actually get outside of descending resistance tells me that this is a wave 4 correction, and we're about to get one more final wave 5 impulse to the downside before this is over. And what that's going to end up looking like is probably close to almost identical to the 618. We're going to be looking at, pretty much in between the 786 and the 618. That's kind of where I would be targeting the final end of this impulse to the downside. But I think big picture, guys, it doesn't change anything, because you guys got to remember that whether we see one more low or whether Bitcoin bottoms here and brings the rest of the market up, to me, ETH looks really heavy, like we are going to get that final low, regardless of what Bitcoin does. But if ETH is looking like it's getting one more low, to me, that probably means Bitcoin's going to end up retesting 25K again. And so don't be caught off guard if we see that final capitulation here, takes us back down to 1400 to 1450. It won't change anything, because all we're going to be looking at is this being a big picture wave 1 of 3. And then in my opinion, what comes next is the wave 3 of 3, upwards of $3,500. So I think big picture, the market is still looking exceptionally strong. The difference is we're just looking at one more final wave 5 impulse to the downside to complete this correction. Overall, to me, it's still just as bullish as it always was. All we're really going to be watching for is this final retest of ascending support. And once again, 1400 to 1450 is going to be my target. So I hope this gives you guys insight as to what I'm looking at, what I'm watching for. Overall, big picture is still bullish. Even though we see one more lower low, it's just an opportunity to accumulate some more ETH. I'm really looking forward to being able to accumulate more ETH on this dip. I didn't really know if we were going to end up getting back down to these same levels, because if you guys remember, during our initial run up, I took a decent amount of profit right here, and then I bought back on the 618 dip, almost at the exact low of this wave 4 correction. And so the fact that we may be getting one more final low that's going to be taking us right back down to that same level, to me, that's a huge buying opportunity, considering the fact I bought a bunch of altcoins during that period. I bought more ETH during that period. If we come back to that same level, I'm just going to do my part by buying more, because I didn't really anticipate us coming back down once again. So that's what I'm watching for in the big picture. Overall, nothing changes. If you guys like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these updates. If you guys want to join the Discord server and actually see how I'm investing, what altcoins I'm going to be buying on this coming dip, links are in the description to go ahead and check that out. Thank you guys so much for the support, and with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.